In the 5th year of my marriage to Connor Gu, the girl he kept in a hotel was exposed, becoming public knowledge. To prevent her from being labeled as the other woman, Connor brought me the divorce papers and said, "Mr. Jian once helped me on his deathbed. He asked me to take care of Jessie Jian. Now that this has come to light, I can't ignore it. All these years, Jessie was always Connor's first choice. In my past life, when I heard these words, I broke down in a fit of rage and refused to divorce, until I developed severe depression." Connor, swayed by Jessie's remark, "Sister doesn't look sick at all," decided I was faking it, playing hard to get, and framed me for infidelity before filing for divorce outright. Only then did I realize I can never compete with a debt of gratitude. In despair, I took my own life. When I opened my eyes again, I signed the divorce papers without hesitation. "Chloe, once this blows over, let's remarry, okay?" In the villa courtyard, as I sat dazed on a stone bench, Hank Gu arrived with Jessie in tow. Just 3 hours earlier, Jessie Jian was exposed by the paparazzi as Hank Gu's suspected lover, sparking a frenzy online as netizens dug into her past, branding her the other woman who interfered in my and Hank's sweet romance. An intruder, Hank Gu's devoted husband persona crumbled overnight, and Gu Enterprises' stock price began to fluctuate. In my past life, when Hank came to me with divorce papers, I was so consumed by hatred that I uprooted every rose he had planted for me in the garden, confronting him hysterically about his relationship with Jessie Jian. She was merely his mentor's daughter. There were countless ways to handle this, yet he chose to sacrifice me, all to prevent Jessie Jian's depression from worsening. But Hank never knew that during the time the scandal trended, I too was diagnosed with moderate depression. "Chloe," Hank called my name again, pulling me back from my daze. I lowered my gaze, fixing it on the divorce papers lying on the stone table. He knelt on one knee beside me, his deep eyes locking onto mine, his burning palm enveloping my hand. His tone was coaxing. "Chloe, do it for me. Will you? We'll announce publicly that our marriage has been a name only for a long time, and we've been planning to divorce for a year, just waiting for the right timing." I remained silent for a long while. Behind him, Jessie Jian stood in a white dress, wrapped in Hank's coat, her lips pale and eyes rimmed red. "Sister Chloe, please help me, won't you? My mother committed suicide due to depression from cyberbullying. I don't want to follow her path. Sister, I'm kneeling to beg you. Please help me." As she spoke and began to kneel, Hank moved swiftly to catch her, pulling her protectively into his arms with practiced ease. His expression darkened as he snapped in a low voice, "What are you doing?" Jessie choked back a sob, her voice fragile and tearful before she lowered her glistening eyes. I just wanted to make Sister feel better." Hank's brow immediately furrowed with impatience. When he looked at me, all traces of tenderness had vanished. "Chloe, I didn't come here to negotiate with you. I've made up my mind on this matter. If you refuse to leave, then don't blame me." I lifted my gaze calmly to meet his eyes, and his subsequent words died abruptly. But I knew what he was going to say. He wanted to say, "Chloe Chu, you know my methods. I have countless ways to make you sign willingly. If it comes to filing for divorce, you can't possibly win against the Gu family's lawyers." These were his exact words in my past life. Later, I was framed and sent to bed with several male models, with irrefutable evidence of infidelity. Overnight, I became the adulterous woman who strayed, subjected to public scorn, while he and Jessie Jian became the innocent victims. "I can sign, but you must promise me one thing." After a long pause, I said. Hank Gu glanced at me and nodded in agreement. He handed me a pen. I took it and signed the divorce papers without a flicker of emotion. "Aren't you going to review the agreement?" Hank Gu frowned as he asked. I smiled faintly. "No need." He was walking away empty-handed, leaving all the family assets to me, all for Jessie Jian, to repay a debt of gratitude. "Find time to go to the civil registry tomorrow." "Okay," I said. Hank Gu's hand, holding the divorce papers, hesitated slightly, his eyes reflecting a trace of bewilderment as he looked at me. But in the end, he said nothing. As they left, Jessie Jian turned back and gave me a mocking glance, her thin lips silently forming the words, "You lost." I had indeed lost. I lost a lifetime, so now I refuse to lose again. A while later, my phone screen lit up with a message from Hank Gu. "I've wronged you today. Chloe, I'm sorry. Once this matter is over, I'll give you a grand wedding ceremony again. We'll remarry. I can't just stand by and watch Jessie's depression worsen. You understand, don't you?" Reading those words, I couldn't help but laugh, tears glistening at the corners of my eyes. It was the same in my past life. To force me into divorce, Hank Gu had schemed with his friends and drowned himself in alcohol, but he forgot. His friends were also mine. Ryan Jiang had earnestly advised Hank not to sacrifice his marriage for Jessie's sake. At the same time, he mediated with me, asking me to try to understand Hank Gu, saying that Hank was a man who valued loyalty. Back then, if it hadn't been for Jessie Jian's father recognizing Hank's talent, investing in him, and helping him start his business, Hank wouldn't be where he is today. At that time, I tearfully retorted, Hank could have clarified this matter in countless ways. Why did it have to be divorce? Ryan Jiang fell silent. He had asked Hank, and Hank's response at the time was, "Someone had to be wronged, and I could only let Atang bear it. She loves me. She'll understand. Because I loved him, I was the one to be sacrificed." What kind of logic is that? Fortunately, I still had a chance. When it came to matters involving Jessie Jian, Hank always acted swiftly. He had just signed the divorce papers with me during the day, and by evening, he had arranged a press conference, sending his assistant to invite me to attend and clarify things. Before I could even speak, the assistant, assuming I would refuse, went ahead and relayed the message Hank had instructed him to deliver. He said, "Miss Chloe Chu, you should attend this press conference. If not for Mr. Hank Gu, then at least for your own reputation." I froze for a second before letting out a derisive laugh. Hank Gu was threatening me. Once again, he was trying to force my surrender using the same tactics from my past life, smearing my name and leaving me to struggle under public scrutiny until I had no choice but to bow my head. I never could understand. Did Hank Gu see me as his wife or his enemy? Now, he wanted to publicly clarify our relationship, and I was no exception. The press conference was held in the grand lobby of Northridge's most luxurious hotel, attended only by the most influential reporters in the industry. When Jessie Jian appeared arm in arm with Hank Gu, dressed in a cheongsam, the reporters instantly swarmed them. Hank instinctively shielded Jessie behind him, smiling as he deflected the microphones. "Please wait. I'll answer your questions one by one. For now, could you all make some room?" His voice was gentle, but the moment he looked up, his eyes met mine, similarly surrounded by reporters. As our eyes met, I couldn't help but secretly hope that Hank Gu would come to my rescue. But the next moment, he indifferently averted his gaze, a faint smile on his lips as he took Jessie Jian's hand and walked onto the stage, as if he hadn't seen me at all. I curled my lips in self-mockery. The reporter closest to me seemed to be an intern, timidly handing me the microphone and asking, "Ms. Chloe Chu, is it true that you and Mr. Gu have divorced?" "Yes." I raised a smile and nodded in response. The intern adjusted his glasses. "But you and Mr. Gu met in high school, dated for 7 years, and were married for 5. Last month, Mr. Gu even splurged on an island for you, naming it after you." I kept smiling, though the warmth never reached my eyes. That was what he owed me. A makeup gift for missing my birthday to take care of the sick Jessie Jian. In my past life, I had been smug about this, only to learn later that the idea came from Ryan Jiang. The island was picked by Hank's assistant, and he didn't even know where it was located. "Do you still love Mr. Hank Gu now?" She looked at me nervously, and the surrounding reporters also fell silent. Even Hank Gu on the stage turned his gaze toward me. His brows furrowed slightly, but I just glanced at him calmly, then smiled and said, "No, I don't." I didn't stay until the end of the interview. After Hank Gu clarified that our marriage had been a name only for a year, I left. Overnight, I became the secondhand goods Hank Gu discarded, and Jessie Jian became the only innocent victim in this media storm. The interview remained pinned at the top of social media for days, its popularity never waning, especially Hank Gu's statement. Chloe Chu and I had already planned to divorce a year ago, but the timing wasn't right. We originally wanted to handle it discreetly, but now innocent people are being affected, so we had no choice but to clarify publicly. Miss Jessie Jian is not the one who came between us and ruined our relationship. She is my teacher's only remaining concern in this world. It's only natural for me to take care of her. I hope everyone can view this matter rationally. Some fans were led to believe that the reason for my breakup with Hank Gu was my inability to tolerate any flaws, tarnishing their pure sibling-like bond and so-called gratitude with dirty assumptions. They also called me petty and lacking generosity, claiming that after 5 years of marriage, I hadn't learned even half of Hank's loyalty and deep affection. The topic trended for days. I became the target of public criticism. After collecting the divorce certificate at the civil registry, Hank called out to me, "Don't take what's said online to heart. People will forget soon enough." I paused, unable to suppress a soft, bitter laugh. Both of us were vilified on social media. Why was the difference so stark? "Chloe, the new year is just 2 months away. Let's remarry early next year, okay?" As he looked at me and stepped closer, I retreated, calmly shifting my gaze to the reporters held back by bodyguards nearby. Hank seemed to realize his misstep and froze in place. "Hank, I'm returning to Harbor City. It's true you haven't been back for a long time. It's good to go back for a visit. I'll come pick you up after the new year." "I'm not coming back," I calmly interrupted Hank Gu. His faint smile froze on his face. His eyes clouded with confusion once more. I continued, "Back when I agreed to sign the divorce papers. You promised me one thing. It's time to fulfill that now." Hank Gu stared at me blankly. In the first moments of my rebirth, it took me only seconds to process my love and hatred for Hank Gu. When I first saw the divorce papers, I had thought of tearing them apart in a fit of rage, of making another scene with him. But in the end, reason prevailed. After a long pause, I curved my lips into a smile. "Hank Gu, I hope you never appear before me again." By the time Chloe Chu finished, speaking with a smile, and disappeared into the crowd, Hank Gu still hadn't managed to react. For a moment, he felt an inexplicable panic, as if he was about to lose the most important thing in his life. Just like that day, when Chloe Chu calmly signed the divorce papers, a vague unease had stirred in his heart. She didn't make a scene, as if she had already foreseen how everything would end. Yet not long ago, Chloe Chu had thrown a fit because he forgot her birthday, even slapping him in the process. He had originally thought that proposing a fake divorce would send Chloe into a frenzy, and he had even prepared himself for the backlash. But she didn't. Instead, she picked up the pen, her expression as calm as stagnant water. At that moment, he had the urge to stop her. But in the end, he did nothing. He told himself it was fine. Chloe loved him deeply. This was just a temporary separation, and he would make it up to her later. But Jessie Jian was different. She couldn't suffer any harm because of him. Years ago, if not for Jessie's father recognizing his talent and risking shareholder opposition to invest in his project, mentoring him until he rose among Northridge's elite, he wouldn't have achieved what he had today, nor would he have been worthy of Jessie. Before her father passed, he had asked him to ensure Jessie lived a safe and happy life. He refused to be an ungrateful betrayer. Ryan Jiang once asked him, if one day both Jessie and Chloe fell off a cliff, who would you save? He laughed at the time, thinking the question was utterly beneath consideration. He would save Jessie Jian, but he would die with Chloe Chu. Ryan Jiang laughed along with him, but he asked himself, what if Chloe Chu didn't want to die? Hank Gu, you can't keep taking advantage of Chloe's feelings for you and always making her suffer. If she can't feel your love, she'll despair too. That day, he dismissed it. He never even took those words to heart. Little did he know, those words would eventually come true. That night, Hank Gu still returned to the villa. After marrying him, Chloe Chu had lived in the villa, halfway up the mountain. She was an exceptional painter. At the age of 10, she was hailed as a prodigy for a transcendent landscape painting that captured an otherworldly essence. Everyone believed her mastery of traditional Chinese painting was extraordinary, destined to make her a leading figure in the field. And so it proved. But after marriage, Chloe's painting style changed, never to return to what it once was. Chloe's mentor tried earnestly to guide her, but the effect was minimal. Eventually, Chloe gave up painting altogether, even resisting the act of picking up a brush. Hank Gu stepped into Chloe Chu's studio. When he saw the landscape painting on the easel, Hank Gu froze for a moment. Though sketched with just a few strokes, it was remarkably lifelike. Mama Chun noticed the light in the studio and came over, slightly surprised to see Hank. "Sir." Hank looked up. "When did Madam paint this?" Mama Chun replied, "The day you brought Miss Jian home." Hank nodded, his lips curving as if to smile. Yet no smile came. After leaving the studio, he returned to the room he once shared with Chloe Chu. He had told himself countless times that their divorce was only temporary. Once the storm passed, he would propose to Chloe again and give her the grand wedding she deserved. But somehow, his heart felt hollow. He dismissed Chloe's words today as nothing more than angry ramblings. Their home in Northridge was waiting for her. How could she not return? Knock, knock. The bedroom door suddenly sounded. Hank, sitting at the foot of the bed, looked up to see Jessie Jian. She stood at the doorway in thin clothing, her cheeks slightly flushed, quietly gazing at Hank Gu. "What brings you here?" Jessie Jian pressed her lips together. "I was scared staying alone at the hotel, so I came to find you." "Did I?" Her voice trailed off as she lowered her eyes. "Disturb you?" Hank Gu's brow furrowed slightly, but he replied, "It's fine. It's just getting late tonight. I'll have Mama Chen prepare a guest room for you to stay." Just as he was about to call for Mama Chen, Jessie stepped forward into the room, her tender eyes fixed on Hank. "Brother Hank, I don't want to stay in the guest room. Is that okay?" she whispered tentatively. Hank's frown deepened, his thin lips parting to refuse. But then he saw her slightly reddened eyes. His resolve softened. "When the plane landed in Harbor City, Troitson came to pick me up. Years ago, at 18, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison after saving a girl who then falsely accused him of sexual assault. Because of his criminal record, no company was willing to take him in. I met him at an art exhibition. He never spoke to anyone, always keeping his eyes downcast. If anyone approached him, he would only retreat timidly. Then one night, on my way home, I encountered thugs and was nearly assaulted when he happened to pass by. I expected him to turn a cold shoulder, but he didn't. He acted without a moment's hesitation. That day, I asked him, 'What if I turned against you too?' He gave a bitter smile. Then I'd accept it. With my family's influence, I helped clear his name. On the day the truth came out, he stood in the distance, his eyes red as he looked at me through the crowd, and bowed in gratitude. 3 years in prison hadn't eroded his kindness. My father, grateful that he'd saved me, extended an olive branch and arranged for him to join the company. Starting from the bottom, he's now my father's most trusted right-hand man. "Miss, it's been a while." Troitson, wearing a trench coat, casually took my luggage. I nodded, an inexplicable ache rising in my nose. 5 years ago, after marrying Hank Gu, I accompanied him north. In my previous life, when the accident happened, he had been sent by my father to Altheria for a closed training program. Until my death, I never saw Troitson again. "Miss, now that you're back, will you leave again?" he asked me. I said, "No, I won't." Troy smiled slightly. "Mr. Chu was very happy to hear you'd returned." Suddenly, I froze, my hands in my pockets tightening unconsciously, a pang of bitterness rising in my heart. Back then, my divorce from Hank Gu had become public knowledge. Afraid I'd suffer any indignity, my father flew overnight from Harbor City to Northridge, pleading with me earnestly. Hank Gu never quite measures his actions properly. Back then, he'd rather collaborate with that old man from the Jian family than accept your help. Put nicely, he didn't want to rely on you. But bluntly speaking, wasn't taking the Jian family's investment, still relying on others. Xiao Tang, it's over and done with. Hank isn't right for you. He wanted to bring me back to Harbor City, but I refused, crying and making a scene to stay. With tears in my eyes, I said, I love Hank Gu, and I refuse to divorce. Why should I sacrifice myself to fulfill his debt of gratitude, even if he drives me to death? I will never leave. I won't go. In the end, my father was so enraged that he suffered a heart attack and was rushed to the ICU, receiving multiple critical condition notices. Overnight, my mother's hair turned white. When my father later woke up, he said nothing, but I knew he was disappointed in me. Before leaving, my mother still pleaded with me. All these years, your father has never interfered with any of your decisions. But Hank Gu is not the right man for you. At the time, I refused to listen, stubbornly determined to run headfirst into a brick wall. It wasn't until I paid with my life that I finally understood. To Hank Gu, I wasn't that important. Are they all doing well? I asked Troitson. Troitson nodded. The group is thriving, and Mr. and Mrs. Chu are in good health. I smiled, meeting his cool gaze. Thank you, Troitson. Thank you for fulfilling my filial duties in my stead. Troitson shook his head. He said it was the least he could do. If my father and I hadn't given him a helping hand back then, he might have died in some forgotten corner long ago. The trending topics on social media continued to proliferate endlessly. From Jessie Jian is Hank Gu's other woman. It has now evolved into claims that I'm heartless and ungrateful. Paparazzi photos of Troitson and me at the airport surfaced yesterday, with rumors now suggesting I had already cheated, which led to the breakdown of my relationship with Hank. I couldn't help but laugh, lowering my gaze to my phone screen where Jessie Jian had added me on a burner account and sent a photo, a picture of her staying overnight at the hillside villa. Hank personally asked me to stay last night. What do you think he'll do tonight? Hank is a man of heavy responsibility, but now the shackles are gone. Chloe, your husband is mine now. She was trying to provoke me, but my heart had long grown numb. Troitson poured me a cup of tea, his worried glance skimming over my phone screen as he said solemnly, Miss, every injustice you've suffered, I will make them pay for it. I didn't answer his question, but instead asked, I heard father introduced you to many socialites, intending for you to settle down. Why did you refuse? Troitson seemed unprepared for my question, lowering his gaze as his fingers traced the rim of the teacup. After a long silence, I asked again, is it because of me? He abruptly looked up, meeting my eyes before guiltily averting his gaze. Over the past 5 years, though Troitson and I never met, every birthday of mine was marked by an extravagant gift from him, spending lavishly. He also frequently wired money into my account. He practically gave me everything he earned. I refused many times, yet he persisted. Eventually, I called him and lost my temper with him for the first time. I said, Troitson, you saved me once, and I helped you once. We're even. It was father who brought you into the group. Your success today is your own doing. You owe me nothing. I'm not your creditor. Your actions only stray my marriage, making Hank Gu misunderstand our relationship. After that incident, Troitson stopped wiring me money. His gifts became merely token gestures. Troy, I told you you don't owe me anything. As soon as I finished speaking, Troy pressed his lips together and said, that's not it. What? He looked at me, lips curling slightly with a faint smile, eyes brimming with affection. I like you, miss. I know there's a world of difference between us. I never dared hope you'd glance my way, but my heart belongs to you. I won't deceive myself or lead others on. As Troy's words faded, I raised my eyes to study him quietly, though we're the same age. He's always been far more mature than me. When I first met him, he was timid and out of place. Now, he's become the pillar of the corporation, the person father values most. Last night, at the family estate, father talked with me at length about the corporation's future, and mine. Finally, he asked me 2 more questions. The first was, do you still like Hank Gu? I shook my head to deny it, but at the second question, I fell silent. He asked me, are you willing to marry Troitson? My father already has plans to retire. though Troy has followed my father for many years. He is not a member of the Chu family. At first, I was uncertain, but now I have my answer. Troy, would you marry me? 2 days later, in Northridge, Hank Gu sat in the art studio, his gaze lowered as he watched Chloe Chu's interview with that intern. The intern asked her curiously, "Do you still love Mr. Gu now?" Chloe smiled and replied, "No, I don't." Those 3 simple words inexplicably weighed on him. He replayed this clip countless times, searching for something in Chloe's eyes. In the end, he found nothing. Frustrated, he pulled up his chat window with Chloe, but upon opening it, he realized the last message was his reminder for her to meet at the civil registry at 9 for their divorce certificate, to which she had simply replied, "Okay." And then there was nothing more. Chloe Chu used to cling to him, sharing every little thing with him at any moment, and he would always respond promptly. He scrolled back through their chat history. Later on, it was often just Chloe talking to herself. Occasionally, he would only find time to reply with a simple, "Okay," or "Got it." The corporate workload was overwhelming. After Mr. Jian passed away, Jesse Jian developed depression and repeatedly attempted suicide. He simply couldn't handle everything. Suddenly, Ryan Jiang sent a message. Chloe Chu is going to marry Troitson. Hank Gu abruptly stood up, accidentally knocking over a nearby easel. The landscape painting fluttered to the ground, and as he hurried to pick it up, a set of medical records lay hidden beneath the drawing board. He froze for 2 seconds. By the time he finished reading, his fingertips trembled slightly. The patient exhibits severe emotional instability, recurrent suicidal thoughts, and significant sleep disturbances. Diagnosis suggests moderate depressive tendencies. The date at the end was the day he proposed the fake divorce to Chloe. Brother Hank, what happened? Jessie Jian heard the commotion and hurriedly ran from the master bedroom to the studio. When she saw the medical diagnosis in Hank Gu's hands, a calculating glint flashed in her eyes. "Can I take a look at this medical record?" Jessie asked softly. Hank said nothing, only feeling waves of dull pain in his chest. She took the medical record from him, flipped through a few pages, then feigned relief and patted Hank's shoulder, comforting him. "Brother Hank, don't worry. Have you forgotten, brother? I'm also a depression patient. You've seen how it is when the symptoms flare up. I saw sister that day. She looked perfectly healthy. Nothing like someone who's sick. She was probably just too angry and brought a fake diagnosis to deceive you." Jessie looked at Hank Gu. Just as she was about to continue speaking, Hank suppressed his emotions and took the medical record back from her hands. After taking 2 steps away, he seemed to remember something and turned back to tell her, "Don't stay in the master bedroom after tomorrow. Chloe Chu will make a scene if she finds out." As the words fell, Jessie Jian froze in place. By the time she reacted and chased after him, brother Hank Gu had already gone downstairs, leaving in such haste he didn't even take his coat. Whether the medical report was real or fake, whether Chloe Chu intended to marry Troitson or not, his only thought now was to see Chloe Chu and bring her home. Troitson took our wedding very seriously, personally overseeing every detail. By day, he shuttled between the company and the wedding venue. At night, he sat in the living room, meticulously handwriting each wedding invite. "Troy, leave these arrangements to your assistant. You're already exhausted from work. No need to trouble yourself further." I stood at the staircase, holding a cup, speaking to Troy in the living room. He set down the pen and smiled softly at me. "No matter what, I want to give you the best, my lady. I know I may not hold a place in your heart, but you are everything to me." The moment our gazes met, for a fleeting moment, I felt a long-lost flutter in my heart. "Miss, you needn't feel any burden. Just focus on being a beautiful bride." Troitson still smiled, his gaze no longer hiding the emotions in his eyes. In the end, I smiled and nodded, but I never expected Hank Gu to come to Harbor City. Just as Troitson and I stepped out after trying on our wedding gowns, I spotted Hank Gu standing under the camphor tree across the street, dressed simply in a white shirt, his hair disheveled, his face slightly pale, his eyes devoid of any light. His gaze lingered briefly on our clasped hands before drifting away. Hank Gu forced a smile and looked at me. Chloe Chu, I've come to take you home. Let's not wait until next year. Let's go back and remarry now, okay? As he spoke, he took a few steps toward us. Troitson instinctively moved to shield me, but I stopped him. Adjusting his slightly crooked tie, I said softly, "Wait for me in the car first. I'll be back soon. Mom made your favorite dish tonight. We'll go home together later." Troitson lowered his gaze to me, the corners of his lips curling slightly as he responded, "All right." After giving Hank Gu one last indifferent glance, he strode off toward the garage. Now, only Hank Gu and I remained by the roadside. He instinctively moved closer, but I subtly stepped back and said softly, "Mr. Gu, let's keep some distance between us. Otherwise, the paparazzi might catch us and social media will be flooded with rumors about me deliberately clinging to my ex-husband again. No matter the era, society is always harsher on women. The incident with Jessie Jian was a perfect example. Hank Gu was the one who couldn't draw the line. Yet in the end, I was blamed for not being forgiving enough. Chloe, Hank Gu's eyes dimmed, his bitter smile failing to reach them. "I've already asked my assistant to handle the situation on social media. I'm sorry for putting you through this. I didn't realize how much distress it caused you. I didn't know." "Hank Gu, you know," I looked at him and said in a flat tone, "if he hadn't known how public opinion could drive someone to pain and depression, he wouldn't have chosen to divorce me just to help Jessie Jian. In my past life, I was framed for cheating with multiple male models. After being divorced from Hank Gu, my reputation was ruined, my career collapsed, and everyone mocked me. Some even came up to me and asked, 'Chloe Chu, how do you still have the face to live after being destroyed by your ex-husband like this?' If it were me, I'd jump from the 18th floor." Still calling herself Mrs. Gu, Hank Gu never cared about her at all. Otherwise, how could he have driven her to the brink of death? Later, I suffered from insomnia every night, sitting by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at the city lights. I burned down my studio. I also burned everything Hank Gu had ever given me, as if that could carve him out of my heart. I raged against all the injustice. I hated how the boy, who once adored me with all his heart, could push me to the edge of despair. In the end, I slit my wrists and committed suicide. To this day, I still remember the feeling of blood slowly draining from my body. Hank Gu opened his mouth to explain, but the words stuck in his throat, impossible to voice. In the end, he could only lower his head helplessly. "Chloe, I'll make it up to you." I couldn't help but laugh. I'd heard that line far too many times. After Jessie Jian's father passed away, Hank left our engagement party, saying, "Chloe, something's happened to Jessie. I need to check on her." On our wedding day, Jessie threatened suicide again. After sending me back to the bridal suite, he didn't return all night. Back then, I wavered on whether to continue this relationship, but seeing how exhausted Hank looked, I endured it. I loved him, so I was willing to stand by him through all hardships. Every broken promise always ended with, "Chloe, I'll make it up to you someday." Hank always assumed we had a lifetime ahead, but he forgot. Love can be worn thin. By the end of my past life, I could no longer tell whether I loved Hank or was just clinging to obsession. After a long pause, I sneered, "Hank, what I asked for was already so little, yet you still couldn't spare me a thought. I was also the apple of my parents' eyes. Why should I let you trample over me like this? So let's just leave it at that." As I finished speaking, I averted my gaze and turned to leave, only for Hank Gu to frantically grab my arm. His tall frame nearly stumbled, his pale lips parting as he uttered, "I don't agree. We can't just leave it like this. Chloe, you're my wife. You can't abandon me." His voice trembled at the end. I laughed softly and pulled my hand away. "We're already divorced. Hank, you forced me to sign the divorce papers, threatened me into attending the press conference to clarify things, and even watched me get the divorce certificate at the civil registry. You did all this. You can't deny it, right?" Hank was speechless. "I'm leaving." When he tried to follow me again, I tilted my chin slightly toward the direction behind him. "Mr. Gu, You and MS. Jian actually make a good pair. Hank's face instantly paled. He had arrived in Harbor City in the early hours of the morning, after his assistant tracked down Chloe Chu's itinerary. He came to find her without a moment's delay, but when he saw her laughing and playfully bantering with Troitson while wearing a wedding gown, he gradually slowed to a stop, standing motionless under the camphor tree, just watching. At some point, he realized he hadn't seen Chloe laugh so freely in a long time. Every time they met, they would argue over Jessie Jian. Slowly, he stopped coming home often, either staying at the office or drinking all night with Ryan Jiang and the others. So, in that moment, he understood with painful clarity what Chloe had said at the civil registry that day came from the heart. She didn't want him anymore, but he couldn't live without her. He stood outside for her as long as the two inside the bridal shop were busy. He even considered barging in to beat Troy up and warn him, "Stop eyeing my wife." But in the end, he couldn't take that step. He was afraid Jessie would hate him. Brother Hank, sister has been gone for a long time. Jessie Jian tugged at Hank Gu's sleeve, snapping him out of his daze. He lowered his gaze to her, his voice slightly hoarse. "Why are you here?" I heard that sister is going to marry someone else. I was worried you'd be sad, so I came to see you," she said softly, just as she was about to hug Hank Gu. He frowned and pressed a hand on Jessie Jian's shoulder. In an instant, her eyes grew moist. "Brother Hank, if sister doesn't want you, I do. Let's get married too, okay?" Hank Gu had never refused any of her requests before. She had thought that after Chloe Chu divorced him, she would smoothly take the position of Mrs. Gu. But now, Hank Gu's face turned cold instantly. "Jessie, do you know what you're saying?" "I do. Hank, I like you." It was the first time she had openly confessed her feelings. Yet Hank Gu only gave a pale smile, laughing until tears streamed down his face. Ryan Jiang had warned him countless times. "The way Jessie Jian looks at you is improper. If you don't want your marriage ruined, I advise you to send her away." "Hank Gu, you're too close to see clearly. Jessie Jian's intentions toward you are anything but pure. Send Jessie Jian away before she destroys your marriage." Yet he never believed a single word of it. Serves him right. Harbor City was far from Northridge, but once something hit social media, it spread like wildfire. On the third day of Hank Gu's relentless pursuit of me, Troitson sent the evidence of Jessie Jian's forged medical records to Hank Gu's email, then compiled years of Hank's broken promises to me, all for Jessie's sake, into an irrefutable chain and released it online. Overnight, public opinion split into extremes, but none of it concerned me. Some argued Jessie Jian exploited gratitude to manipulate Hank, sabotaging our marriage and causing its collapse. Others claimed Hank Gu's devotion was a farce. If he truly wanted to repay Jessie's father's kindness, couldn't money and resources have sufficed? He had to bully his own wife, driving her to despair and divorce. Hank Gu's reputation took a hit. The company's stocks suffered a market crash. Not long after, I unexpectedly uncovered evidence of Jessie Jian's staged act, hiring someone to photograph her and Hank Gu entering a hotel together and paying trolls to smear herself as the other woman, and leaked it. Social media erupted in chaos. Hank Gu was overwhelmed, initially planning to send Jessie abroad, but after seeing the trending topic, he nearly strangled her on the roadside. He demanded answers from Jessie. "Why would you do this?" Jessie first tried to play the emotional card, but when she was nearly choked unconscious, she suddenly burst into hysterical laughter and openly confessed, "I just wanted to be Mrs. Gu. I just wanted to force Chloe Chu to divorce you." Hank Gu, if you truly loved Chloe, I wouldn't have had a single opening to exploit. Hank Gu was so furious he vomited blood and collapsed on the spot. A bystander filmed the scene, and the video went viral online. Gu Corporation's stock price plummeted, and after Hank Gu regained consciousness, he became mentally unstable and was directly ousted from his position as CEO. As for Jessie Jian, she was now infamous and had no choice but to leave the country. But unfortunately, she died in a car crash on her way to the airport. On the wedding day, Troitson gave me a grand wedding, Flowers filled the city. Fireworks lit up the night sky, and everyone knew about it. When a guest joked that marrying Troitzen was a blessing I must have earned in a past life, he coldly laughed and had the person escorted out of the wedding. Then, openly after the vows, he declared, I am the Chu family's live-in son-in-law. In this life, alive I belong to the Chu family. Dead, I am the Chu family's ghost. Troitzen knew my heart might not be entirely his, yet his kindness toward me never wavered. On our wedding night, he held me tightly, as if afraid I would leave or disappear. It wasn't until I pressed him that I learned. Hank Gu had committed suicide. Before his death, he had a moment of clarity and sent the medical records he left in my studio to Troitzen. He also wrote me a letter. The letter was long. Every word was filled with remorse for me. He also mentioned having a nightmare. In the dream, he forced me to divorce, and when I refused to compromise, he framed me and sent me to the beds of several men. In the end, I was so desperate that I committed suicide by cutting my wrists. Yet he chose to sacrifice me. He didn't even know that the fact I was ill was real. He said if he had known, he would never, ever have treated me that way. When he saw the bathroom covered in blood, his heart shattered, wishing it had been him who died instead. The letter ended with, fortunately, what happened in the dream didn't occur. And one more line, I'm sorry. I let out a cold laugh. In the end, I casually tossed the letter into the trash can, along with the medical records. Miss Troitzen frowned slightly. I said softly, the Chloe Chu of the past was sick, but I'm not that Chloe Chu anymore. After leaving him, the illness was cured. After a long moment, Troitzen smiled, helplessly yet adoringly. I looked at him and couldn't help smiling too. Thankfully, in this lifetime, I've lost nothing.